Welcome everybody to this webinar session. We are going to deal today with COVID-19 and family lawyers, and really a toolkit as to how to manage clients, manage stress and keep going. And I would like to introduce you to friend and colleague Rachel Osgood from Paris Smith. She's a partner in the family department there, and also Malminda Gill, who is a relationship therapist who has a practice based in Harley Street, and she is going to assist us today. So welcome Malminda and welcome Rachel.
Hi Imogen.
First of all, Malminda, if I could ask you to give us some top tips on how to manage our anxiety and how to manage client anxiety in this challenging time of national crisis.
Okay, yeah, first of all, I would say the first step is recognize what makes you feel calm, because you have been through challenging times before. So go back through your personal history, have a think about the kind of things that you were doing then. You're probably doing them now to a greater or lesser degree, or you might be so swamped you don't have time to put measures in place for relaxation. We're all told to eat healthy, continue exercising, do meditation and things like that. So those sorts of things aren't in your routine and they feel quite alien to you. Now's the perfect time to start introducing those. There's a number of breathing techniques, specifically if you're not into meditation, that I think will be very useful, and I'll be demonstrating a few of those towards the end of this video. So carving out some time, especially in the morning, first thing before opening up your laptop, your phone, looking at that, that's the time to do it, to set you up through the day, but then also to introduce such measures throughout the day, at lunch break, in the afternoon, because you're not getting that rest like you normally would when you leave house and you have a whole day outside of the house and then you come back in. So just think about all of the times throughout your normal day that you would be taking breaks, going to the coffee shop, you know, heading out for lunch. All of those times stacked up are actual genuine timeouts for you. So you need to start introducing similar sort of strategies at home where you can take some time out.
And I was going to ask Rachel now, because I know that she's got some challenges that she's dealing with at work with her team, and I think she would like to ask you some questions herself.
We're all in unprecedented times here, uncharted waters, and it feels like we've been that way for so long, what with one thing and now this thing, and we're all just making things up as we go along. And that goes for everybody, from, you know, people out on the street to colleagues to bosses, managers, bosses of companies, governments, you name it. We're all just making it up as we go along. So as a partner in the family department at Paris Smith, I was tasked this morning, now that we're moving towards a skeleton staff only, to sorting out a rota for our staff to try and minimise the chance of infection in the office. And looking at the people available, we're lucky, we've got lots of lawyers and lots of support staff and a really great team. But the decision that I had to make, I found, was about the junior staff. And my instinct was to try and protect them as much as possible from being around other people and increasing the chances of infection by leaving them out of the staff rota. So they're staying at home, they're staying in isolation, and they're away from the office, leaving it then to the more senior, older lawyers to be in the office, one each day alongside one support staff member. But as I was doing the rota, it felt then to me, maybe there's a different problem here, in that the younger, perhaps junior lawyers are perhaps more likely to feel anxious about being isolated at home, more likely to feel stressed by not having that close supervision of the more senior colleagues, and that perhaps by excluding them with the best of intentions, trying to protect them, actually we might be contributing to their feelings of stress and anxiety and isolation. And I wondered what view you might have about that, and the extent to which we should try to protect them versus the extent to which they might actually suffer as a result of that protection.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're living in hugely anxious times. Anxiety lives off ambiguity. So if you're a junior member of staff and your concern as a senior member is, I don't want them to feel any more isolated, and make sure that their mental health is in check, perhaps the best thing to do is to ask all members of staff, like distribute the rota and ask them what slots would they like to occupy. And I think not only will that give them a sense of reassurance that they are part of the decision making, but also it will reduce unnecessary anxiety, because things aren't just thrown at them. Some people thrive off working in isolation, others don't. So when they have a sense of, I can control at least this element, I have a sense of, my opinion here is valid, there's going to be less stress, and also for them, they're going to feel more in control, and they're more likely in the long term to stay committed to that too. So, rather than doing something against their will, or, they're already quite unnerved by all of this, and so, it will just offer a huge amount of reassurance and a family sense that we're all in it together, and, the company are looking after me.
And of course, they're not the only ones feeling anxious and discombobulated by it. So, I mean, today is the very first day for me of working from home before we go to skeleton staff. And already I've noticed a difference in that on Fridays, normally it's a very productive day for me. I jump out of bed at 5 o'clock. I go out running. I leave for work at 7. I'm at my desk by 8, and I beaver away till whenever I go home. This morning already felt very different. It's like the world has shut down outside. So I crept out of bed at 8 and got to my home office at 9, and I already feel like there's a danger of lack of motivation and less productivity and all the rest of it, because it feels almost like that shutdown you get at Christmas. So you've got 2 weeks at home and nobody else is doing anything either, so you're not getting left behind. And it's like, okay, I feel that as a more senior member of the department, perhaps, but how are we going to keep motivating not just ourselves but our more junior colleagues to keep going and seize the moment and maintain our levels of productivity?
That's a great point. And so just to bear in mind, when you're at work in an office environment, even though you might be feeling quite low levels of motivation, you can just walk through the office and not everybody's in that space, and so you can pick up on different vibes, and that sometimes can kick you into shape. But obviously we're all working from home now, so we don't have that, and with that isolation comes the sense of, am I in Groundhog Day? I'm having a bad day, and is this going to keep repeating itself? So going back to my earlier point, just to keep in mind, throughout a typical week, your level of motivation isn't all the way up there all the time. Also, it usually isn't all the way down there. It's somewhere in between. And we're fueled by our colleagues, teams, discussions. There's a lot of things going on in the office that pick us up when we need it. But at home, we don't have that. So where you've had a day-to-day feeling less motivated and less willing to get through the kinds of things that you would normally do, just bear in mind you're going to have days like that, and afternoons and mornings, because you're not getting that time that you usually would, where you nip out for coffee or you have a quick chat with somebody in the staff room kitchen or things like that. So just make peace with that now, that I might be highly stressed or highly motivated on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday it might be like, and then Friday I'll pick things up again. The fact that what I'm hearing in your words is that little bit of sense of self-beating up, right? That might be enough to kick things into gear for the following week. But just to measure it and know that it's going to come in waves. And if you feel this way for more than 3 or 4 days consecutively, that's the time to get worried. But if you're having the odd day a week, I would say you're going to have 1 day a week like this. It's going to happen. Expect it. If it happens half a day, you've probably got off lucky. If it's going on to the 3rd day, that's when you need to speak up.
Okay. And of course, for many of us, there's the added challenge of not having your home as your peaceful office during the day whilst the kids are at school, because the schools are closing as of today. So from Monday, many of us will be not just attempting to keep ourselves motivated whilst working from home in isolation, but also attempting to play at least some part in homeschooling our children. That is going to be a source of additional stress for many workers, I would have thought.
Yeah, absolutely. So, it will be a case of making sure that there's a separate space from a separate working space, sticking to your working times as well, but also right off the bat, conditioning your children, your partner, how to be in this environment. So if you're the kind of person who's just going to work sitting on the sofa with all of that going on, the circus or family around you, and you're going to be always present and always available to every single need, you're conditioning them from day one that this is going to be acceptable going forward. And you might be able to continue like that for a week, but then at one point it's going to get too much and something's going to give. So just anticipating that already, now's the time to put measures in place, boundaries in place, and think about how you're going to manage that, how you're going to educate your children in what's the right protocol for contacting you during that time when you are working and there's something quite urgent. They just need to know. There's just a how to. That's all that's needed. You should think it through and think, how can I best educate my children in how to be now that we're all at home. So just to figure that out. But also, now's also the good time to put measures in place, teaching them how to cook so they can cook meals for you, cook meals for themselves if they're of that age where they can do that. Teaching them about self-care, meditation, breathing techniques, and these are going to be great life skills for them. So you can all meditate together, have time out together. And teaching them that means time out for mummy and daddy too, even though we're all in the same room, right? So this is a great time to be putting those measures in place, but boundaries, clear boundaries, setting them up from day one so that everybody knows. And you'll be surprised within a few days, once everybody knows what their role is and what they're doing, it will be so much easier. So it's just role assignment here at home. Sounds very HR and company, but yeah.
Family's going to be so important during this time. For those of us who are lucky to have a family around us, it's going to be no doubt a source of huge angst as we all start to get on each other's nerves, but also a source of strength and comfort. And I've touched on the fact that I work as part of a fantastic team, dedicated people. We thrive off working together closely and very in a very collegiate way. And I guess we've got to put additional thought into how we care for our colleagues who perhaps don't have the support of a family at home, who escape the trauma of homeschooling their children, but on the other hand don't have that extra comfort and support that other people might have.
Absolutely. So with things like that, and there'll be age and experience differences too. So there'll be junior members of staff who have certain sets of skills. There'll be senior members of staff who have certain sets of skills. So now is a great time for companies to have their staff members, maybe fill out a form or something, a checkbox thing. I can help in this, this, and this, and this. I can help with tech support. I can help you get your webinar going. I can help you with this, 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 or I'm here if you need advice on how to deal with this problem, that problem. We all have wisdom, a skill set that is underutilized, and now's the perfect time to do that. So, and then to create a platform where that gets pushed out so that people know that I'm here for this and this and this, and then they can buddy up and coach each other through that. And also it might be worth, on top of that, asking people, when are you free during the week for a cafe style just chit chat?
Yeah.
Put those times in, and then we'll throw this out into the pool, into the company, and you can all hang out in this virtual space at this time and just have a chit chat. That might be useful. So you can have an environment like what's created right now, that's just live all the time, and people can just drop in and drop out with their cup of coffee, biscuits, or whatever.
Thank you.
Obviously, as a barrister, I'm self-employed and work for myself. I'm not in an office environment as such. How can I support my colleagues through this? Because normally my days are spent either working on briefs at home, or it's a court, and a lot of my social contact at work will come at court with the people I meet. How can I make sure that I'm keeping motivated and going in that environment, but also how can I reach out to my colleagues who are dotted all over the south of England? What could I do specifically to help them and to make a difference in their lives?
Yeah, absolutely, Imogen. And it's a unique position as a barrister because it's quite an isolated profession anyway. And now you're all being asked to not only have all the answers to the questions, but within even more isolated terms too. So it is a challenge. And I think one thing that you might benefit from is a buddying service, setting up some kind of buddying service where you partner with another barrister for chats, Q&As over, almost like coaching over the telephone. So it might be worth spreading the word, putting that out there. I'm starting this initiative, and if you want to be a part of it, let me know, and then just pairing people up. That's what you could personally do for other barristers, so that everybody has a lifeline. And if something like that was to take place, then I would recommend that each partner has 30 minutes, 30-minute call, so almost like a coaching setup. So partner A speaks to partner B about their issues for 30 minutes on a Monday afternoon, and then they swap on a Friday afternoon, something like that. That way you will feel like you're not so isolated, and it will be a chance for you to also suggest other ideas that and problem solve and things like that. So that's one thing you can personally do. But then how to deal with already being in an isolated profession and then having another band of isolation around you. You might also want to set up some kind of forum where people can drop in and out from a video conference and all chat together. And the other thing is to recognize that there will be, again, certain skill sets in senior people and junior people, and why not use this time now to share those skills, share that wisdom.
Oh, that's very helpful. Thank you very much. Now, there are inevitably going to be some people, maybe a bit more like me, who's willing to talk about their feelings and the difficulties that they're going through. I met with Rachel this week, and the A-levels have just been cancelled, and that, as my daughter's due to sit her A-levels, that caused a little bit of a wobble in our household, and I was able to share that with Rachel when we met earlier on this week. But lots of people just don't want to share, they don't want to discuss things. They keep their feelings to themselves, which obviously is absolutely fine. But stress and anxiety affects people in different ways. How can those people help who don't find it so, how can they be helped who don't find it so easy to share? They don't want someone like me in their face asking them how they're feeling. They want to be left alone. What can they do?
Well, first of all, they're missing out on that. So by talking to you. But the thing is, I think if you're the kind of person who internalizes these experiences and don't necessarily want to talk to anybody else about them, you know, that's completely fine. We all have our own way of experiencing things. Some of them are auditory, some of them are vocalized, and some people experience and express things in a different way. Just because people aren't talking, first of all, doesn't mean to say that they are not acknowledging their experience and they're not expressing it. They might be expressing it in different ways. So what are those different ways that, you know, it could be through painting, it could be through journaling, through writing, it could be, you know, just anything that gets it out. Now, we're used to talking. So if you externalize and you talk and you're a talker, then you're happy to pick up the phone and talk to someone, and then you would expect the other person to share as well. But not everybody's like that. So to know that different modalities work for different people is very important here. So if you do know people who internalize their experiences and their feelings, and you get the sense that perhaps they're not dealing with it quite so well, an option might be to make suggestions like journaling, painting, creating music, you know, these sorts of things, or being a little bit creative in that way. Also, I just want to add, I do have a managed coronavirus anxiety program, and the first part of it actually forces you to get it all out, and that is in a very private, individual kind of way. Outside of that, you might, you know, if you have a pet, you're very lucky, you can talk to your pet, you know, or, you know, if you want to get really creative with this, the film with Tom Hanks, Castaway, where he starts talking to that football Wilson, you know, that might be useful. You know, so there's lots of creative ways. The point is, whether you're somebody who externalizes it or internalizes it is one thing, but to make sure that you get it out of your system and you express it in some way, what works for you, that's the important thing here.
Oh, good. Could I ask you now, because again, there is that sense of working in isolation at the bar. There are certain people, we will have our heads of chambers who are running the shop. They're in overall charge and they're meant to know all the answers and to be making the decisions. And I know in our chambers, and maybe some others are like that as well, there are a few people at the top who I sense are really carrying the can at the moment. And part of me wants to say, what can I do? What can I help? What can I do to help? But for those people who are at the very top of organizations and probably feeling quite vulnerable because they don't want to be saying that they don't actually have all the answers, what can they do specifically? And I'm sure it's the same with managing partners in solicitors' firms. What could they be doing to help themselves?
Yeah, absolutely. So the old adage, lonely at the top, it's, you know, it's now so in our faces, especially if you're in those senior roles. And I've been speaking to senior people all week, and the number one thing is, you know, people are looking at me for answers. I'm expected to know, and I've always had the facade of knowing. And now what do I do? It's almost like an external persona is starting to crack, and it's happening in front of everybody. So that's the fear. So we need to deal with the fear of not of being known as somebody that doesn't exactly have all of the answers. So we're talking here of so many different levels of things that are going on, because there will be some leaders out there who are open to expressing, actually, this is the best course of action given the information that we have. If you have any other ideas, raise your hand and let's discuss this. So they're in a different sort of camp. So if you're one of those, you might not be feeling the pressure quite so much, but if you're outside that camp, then boy, it will be a whopping amount of pressure, and you might be grappling with imposter syndrome, that kind of thing. You know, I'm always known to have the answers. So really directly facing your fears, and maybe now is the time to grab those horns and just, you know, start having those, you know, what may seem awkward conversations. You know, everybody's vulnerable right now. Even our governments don't know what to do. So, you know, maybe now's the time to just start speaking to other senior members of your team, you know, starting to get comfortable with the notion that you don't have the answers, but also comfortable having those discussions, even if it's with one or two people. The important thing is that, you know, these things are shared at this moment. And I think when, as a leader, you're putting up a front that you've got it all covered and you have all the answers, what you're really doing there is telling everybody else it isn't safe to express yourself in any other way. So maybe this might be a chance to change that.
Could I ask you now, for our clients, because obviously for Rachel and I, the clients are our main concern. You know, we pride ourselves on doing the best job for the people that we are representing. And as you know, they are people who are facing crisis in their own families. And this is another crisis on top of it. How do we speak to them? How can we help them to manage their own emotions and feelings at this time? And we would be grateful to know any resources that you have, but really on that one-to-one level, how should we be reassuring them at the moment?
Yeah. So before you can reassure them and perhaps calm them down, you need to do the work yourself. So check in with yourself. If you're not feeling particularly reassured or calm, that's not the time to be picking up the telephone and having a conversation with your client. That's why now more than ever, take it. If you want to be acting more of a responsible way, be responsible for your own emotional and mental state. Do the work in the morning, do a meditation, do the breathing work, ground yourself, do all of those things, and then pick up the phone. Check in with your own energy levels, and then you'll be able to take on board their concerns and offer advice where necessary, and offer them the reassurance. But if at that moment you're feeling frazzled, angry, unsure, uncertain, which a lot of us are right now, going into a phone call with a client at that point isn't going to work out well. So the first order of business is do the work yourself, and then you'll be able to offer better ideas and advice for your clients. And then you can also suggest things that genuinely work for you, that you feel, knowing what you know of your clients, could work for them. But if you're not doing the work yourself to calm yourself down, you're not going to be in a position to offer that as advice or resource for any one of your clients.
No, that's really helpful. That's good wisdom. I was wondering whether you had any other tips for us. I mean, you're a relationship therapist. What sort of other tips do you think are coming up around this whole COVID-19 climate?
Yeah, so people who are isolated, you know, now they're faced with the number one thing of, you know, the relationship they have with themselves, their internal dialogue. Is their internal dialogue saying horrible things to them? You know, are they talking to themselves in negative ways and things like that? So if you're isolated and you have a negative dialogue, now it's probably going to be the volume is going to be quite high on that. So one thing that you can do if you're in that current situation right now is to play around with that voice. I want you to ask that voice, you know, where is it coming from? Is this voice mine? Where has this actually come from? That's number one. The other thing is you can play around with the volume. How about turning it down? Pretending you have a mental remote control, turn that volume down. If it's particularly strong, perhaps put a cartoon voice over it, you know, so that you hear it as if it's a Donald Duck or Mickey Mouse. So those are for the groups of people who are isolated, who might be having a negative conversation with themselves for whatever reason. That's something you can do. And on the flip side, the other problem is, you know, how do you deal with all of the annoyances of your partner, your children, or whoever you're cooped up with? Because you're going to start realizing things that they're doing that are annoying. And it comes back to what I've said earlier, again and again. do the work yourself. Wake up in the morning, do those meditations, do those breathing exercises. Keep your boundaries, now more important than ever before, and have that discussion now with your partner, perhaps, or with the person that you live with. These, you know, you can say things like, when I'm annoyed, this, and this is going to come out of my mouth. And I'm going to start off with level 1, you know, and it's going to probably be quiet. It's probably going to be with my body language, or I'm going to say something. So as soon as that happens, you know, to be a little bit on alert. And I will hopefully have the self-awareness to step away from it. Now, have that discussion with your partner, an open discussion that we're going to be cooped up here for a really long time. What can we do to make sure things don't spiral out of control? You know, shall we have like a word that we say, you know, and then we know just to part ways, or not talk, or listen to music, or read poetry, or do something else?
About positivity?
I suppose it's about identifying what positives you can take, and for people like me who aren't known for their positivity, how to keep them positive. I mean, actually, for me, I know it's awful, and obviously I worry for our vulnerable and our old people, and I'm not relishing the thought of becoming ill myself, but life feels like it's lived on the absolute max, the fast track. I have to remember 6 billion things every day. I'm a mummy, I'm a lawyer, you know, all these different things. I have to get different people to different places at all different times of the day, and remember to, you know, wash my hair and everything. Well, now none of that's happening, and already this week I'm feeling the benefit of having all the clubs cancelled. So I haven't had to remember this, that and the other for the kids. What I have to do so far is take them to school and remember to pick them up. I've managed to go to work, you know, and everything already feels quite pared back. I'm looking forward to actually spending time with the family that we get so deprived of most of the time. And maybe we were saying earlier this week, having had to conduct a hearing by remotely, we've had the technology for years and we haven't had to use it. Now we have to use it, and that's good for the environment. You know, we've had floods, we've had fires, and now we've got plagues this year. Maybe we all need to reset our lives and start living in a more sustainable way. And maybe after this, we can't ever and shouldn't ever go back to where we were in terms of running around like mad headless chickens, burning fuel to get to places we don't actually really need to be in physically.
No, I would agree with that. I think the one thing that I hope will come out of it is that we actually realise and reconnect with the fact that we're human. I think a lot of the time we are just so busy that we just don't take time to enjoy the small and little things in life. I took my dog for a walk on one of the days when it had all broken, and I think we were told how horrendous things were, and I got up in the morning and I took him for a walk, and it was really quiet, and I remember seeing his little tail wagging and how happy he was, and it just brought back happiness in life, really. And I think it's little things like that that normally I'm walking the dog to get to work quickly and to sort everything else out. I don't actually have time to look at his little waggy tail and appreciate the smells of the countryside and the greenness. Nothing like that. So I think to reconnect with that will be nice.
Yeah, and I think that hopefully what we will all individually take away from this is how resilient we are, and how strong we are, and how creative we are. Because to get through what we're about to get through, you have to have quite a creative mind, and be fairly resilient. So I'm hoping that people start to realise that they do have so many good qualities about them that they should be appreciating, and that they have so many resources inside of them, different ways of thinking, and you know, more good will come of this when people start to recognize, actually, I did that and I was fine. I managed to do that and I was fine. Despite all fears, I got through it and I'm fine. And that level of confidence that will come from having gone through what we're all about to go through, I think that will be such a fundamental shift in our mental and emotional well-being. And hopefully it will provide the platform for people coming out of this to leap ahead and do all of those other things that they thought they shouldn't, couldn't, wouldn't be doing. You know, like, oh, that's not for me. I don't have the confidence to do that. And I think after this, hopefully people will think, actually, I probably could do it if I really wanted to. So that's my hope.
Oh, now, Malminda, I was going to ask you if you would lead us in a meditation and also let us know where we can access your free online resources. That's it now then from me.
So this is a very brief meditation that I'm about to start. If you would like to find out more, that I'm sure there'll be links here somewhere, but I do have a managed coronavirus anxiety program, which is designed to help you face your anxiety, restore sense of balance, and then we end with some really nice positive affirmations. Which I hope will be useful for a lot of people. But for now, let's get started on something that will hopefully round this up in a very nice, peaceful way. So if I could ask you all to close your eyes, I'm going to keep my eyes open so I can see you all, but close your eyes. And I'd like you to start off by taking a deep breath in through the nose, counting to 7. And then exhale out of the mouth, counting to 11. And again, breathing in, counting to 7. And out, counting to 11. And while I'm talking in the background, I'd like you to, with each breathing cycle, just count a little bit slower. And you might see numbers dancing in your head while you count up and down. And it's in the extended exhalation where your body starts to relax. And you might like to relax your jaw muscles. And you might like to relax the tiny muscles around your eyes. Continuing to breathe, counting into 7 and out to 11. And perhaps something comes into your mind now. Something calming, peaceful. Might be a colour that you associate with peace. Or something from nature. Or a symbol. And whatever shows up for you is just fine. You may like to continue breathing in this way, or you can revert back to your natural way of breathing whenever you like. All the while keeping in mind that colour or that symbol. And then just take a few deep breaths. And then opening your eyes when you feel ready. And that's it. That was just a few minutes of peace and calm. And if you're able to do that in the morning once, in the afternoon once, and in the evening, that will help you to reset your mind a little bit more.